Hello again. Okay. Um just from my experience on YouTube and like comments being pretty heinous, I'm just coming as I am when it comes to doing this. So just be aware. If you expect me to be one of those YouTubers that gets all dolled up to present themselves in front of people, yeah, no. No. I'm not doing that. So yeah, let's let's get started. Genesis 1. Um hmm. I'm not sure how I should structure this to make it more accessible for everybody. But I'll put the link of the site that I'm using for consistency if you want to follow along, or if you're like, oh, that's not what it says. Well, this is what I'm reading. So the site is called BibleStudyTools.com. So Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 2. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. I'm just thinking, so we just take those two lines. Again, this might be painful for some, but hey, if I lose you, I lose you. So taking those first two lines, in the beginning there was God. There you go. He created the heavens and the earth. The heavens, plural. The earth, singular. Okay, so the heavens. So when I think about that, the first thing I think of is Dante's Inferno. Um, because he talks about the levels of hell. But I think there's two other books, like Purgatorio and Paradiso, I believe. And I think in Paradiso there's also levels of heaven. I'm currently reading Dante's Inferno. I have so many books that I've started and not finished. So, but that's a whole nother story. But there's also the Book of Enoch. And from my understanding, the Book of Enoch is not canon in the King James Bible or in the Catholic Bible. Should I? I'm gonna sound so ignorant. What is the Catholic Bible? Because that's the funny thing, right? Because you have Catholicism, and then you break apart to Protestant. So who's the head of the church? The Pope, the King, blah blah blah. Okay. So yeah. But I think the Book of Enoch is canon in the Ethiopian Bible, which is, from my understanding, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Bible. So, from what I've heard about the Book of Enoch, is that there were also levels of heaven, and that there are different types of angels. Another another reason why I want to read the Bible for myself is because sometimes I hear these stories and I'm like, oh, these are so engaging and interesting. And then I go and I sit with the book and it's like dry, dry and painful for me to get through. And I'm like, are we reading the same Bible? Like, how are you getting all this beautiful imagery and character development and all of this, and I'm getting nothing? Yeah, but that's besides the point. That's some of my frustration. But I've heard some really riveting stories in the Book of Enoch. So that's there. So we'll leave a note. Heavens, heavens. Now, when you think about that, heavens. Which heaven are we going to? Okay? Because we always talk about, from what I've seen in Christianity, we always talk about it as heaven in one general sense. I remember I was talking to this one person and they were saying that only Jewish people are going to heaven because they're the chosen people. Everyone else goes to like this second tier. And I think of it in terms of Greek mythology where the gods are on Olympus and then there's like an area for the heroes. So there you go. Okay, so it says the earth was out without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And that makes me think of Greek mythology. Because from what I remember, I'm thinking, like, wasn't the earth female? And, like, the heavens... Wasn't that male? And they were partners? So that was the first relationship? I could be wrong. Again, when I record these, I'm just reading this like as we go, and these are just the thoughts that pop into my mind. Maybe when I go back, I will come back with something more polished and clear and concise with where my exact thoughts or my train of thought is coming from. It reminds me of Kanye when he was saying like his thoughts were like trains. That's me. It's like there's different time stops and destinations and it's all over the place. Okay, so verse 3. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Okay. You know, sometimes I think about stuff like that and it's like, oh, is it that simple? Or is it just like, this book is already 2 billion pages. Why not leave out some details? Like, leave some mystery. Because if I go and I touch the light switch, it's like, oh, okay, let there be light. But then if you think of the mechanics that goes into the electrical system, or like lighting a match, or in the beginning there was friction, or I don't know. Okay. Let's continue. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Okay, so the light is good. Now, language. Language is a colonial tool. Sometimes darkness is implied as evil. But sometimes I think to myself, some of the scariest things happen in broad daylight. Like, you always hear it, like, and he shot him in broad daylight. And he hurt that person in broad daylight. It's almost like it's more offensive that you didn't have the decency to hide your offensive behavior. So it's almost like the light itself is automatically pure. It's always isolated as pure or good. And then darkness has the opposite, which I don't necessarily think is fair because not all bad things happen in the dark. Sleep. You can go mad if you're in a room that's all light all the time. But I'm sure a lot of people value a good night's sleep in the dark. You know, or sometimes when you just close your eyes and ground yourself and like look within. Maybe. I don't know. That's just a thought. Um Again, I really shouldn't be doing this, but okay. Yeah, and God saw the light and that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Uh, See, that's my problem because sometimes I take things too literally. Like, for example, I'm sitting in a room, and when I read that statement, all I think about is I'm seeing the light and the shadows. What is shadow if it's not darkness? Like, what is a great. Again, that is most likely not the point. Okay. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Interesting. Interesting. Now think about this. Do we have it all wrong? Like, our day starts at 12 a.m. 12 in the morning. And then it ends at 11:59 at night. So if the evening came before the morning, then aren't we off? Maybe. Again, probably not the point. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Okay. Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. I'm trying to be less annoying, so I won't go into that. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. The firmament is heaven? Okay. Again, Google is free and it's right here on the computer, so I could pull up the definition, but I was confused because I was thinking of firmament as land in that context. So it's heaven. Oh, okay. So, thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above The firmament? But the firmament is heaven. What? Okay. Can somebody explain to me that visual? Because I am lost. So there's water above heaven. Is that the clouds? Or what? See, this is why I wouldn't be converted, because I would be asking, they would be talking about bigger themes like, oh, the Ten Commandments, and I'd be like, go back to the beginning and explain this. I'm just trying to understand the geography. Okay, okay, okay. That's beside the point. But if somebody actually gets that, explain that to me, because clearly I am slow. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let dry land appear. And it was so. If the water is all in one place, I always thought of Pangea as being in the center. And the water is like around. But I guess in theory, maybe land is on one side. Then, besides the point, okay. And God called the dry land earth. See, so the firmament, clearly, well, yeah, we established that it was heaven. And God called the dry land earth. Okay, so right now we have water, we have earth, and they are beside each other. And then above that, we have the firmament. But above that, we have more water. Okay. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it was so. So when I think about this, I think of the nonsense I used to think about as a kid. Like, who was the first person to pick up a strawberry and say, hey, I should eat this? How many people had to die to find out what was edible? But hey, if God spelt it out, it'd make a lot of sense. Eliminate some of that trial and error, survival of the fittest. So I guess grass was everywhere in the beginning. Funny how now there's a lot of places where grass can't grow, or grass is not, or grass was not native to the area. But then what is grass, and how many different kinds of grass, and oh my gosh. in itself, according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. Okay. Okay. When I read that, I think about like genetic modification. It's like GMO foods. Interesting. Okay. So 13. So the evening and the morning were the third day. Again, evening coming before the morning. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years." If the light is in heaven or in the heavens, we can see it? And if so, is it, what's the word I'm looking for? Stratified? Or like, we're not getting the direct light. Again, okay. Is the firmament just clouds and then the sky, the water above? But the thing is, usually when you see clouds, it's like clouds are not just sitting on the ground. Because I'm trying to picture, I don't know who wrote Genesis, but I'm trying to understand their language. And you see, the thing is, this has been translated. So they could have meant none of this. But hey. Signs and seasons. So, are signs distinct from seasons then? And it's to separate the day from the night. Okay, but we've already established day and night earlier, before the third day. So why is this different? Unless there's a difference between evening and night. Oh my gosh. And for days and years. Okay. So I understand that we've established a day. But how did you come up with a year? What are you using as the tool to measure the year? I don't know. And okay, so 15. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and it was so. Let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the So the light is intended for the heavens. And they're sharing it with the earth? Or giving it to the earth? So is it like glass? Okay. some of these things I'm pretty sure. It's like, why is it in here if there's no point? But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, you just gotta move on. Okay. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. We established that there was. Are you. Okay, you're telling me that there's two lights. You're telling me that there's two lights. We established that one was created earlier. Now, okay, so two great lights. Okay, I'm thinking of it in the literal sense. Like we have the sun, the moon, because he's saying the stars are a separate entity, even though the sun is a star. Okay. 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 But the moon reflects the sun's light. So if you're reflecting a light, that is the same light. Now, these two great lights, because he's talking about it in terms of day and night, but he hasn't differentiated. He hasn't assigned it. Like it's very unclear if both lights belong, or these new lights belong to the earth. Because he said the first light, the heaven gives to the earth. That light is given to the earth. So the question that I'm asking is, does heaven have days and nights? I don't know. You see, when they say that, oh, Eve ate the apple, right? Because the tree of knowledge, you wanted to know God. I get it. Ignorance is bliss. Maybe that's my sin. Like, I want to know God. Like, I want to get in his head and understand, like, what is this? And maybe that's... Because this can drive you mad. But... Okay. Okay. God's 17. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. Okay. Got ahead of myself. He answered the question. Okay, so... But in 16, he said, then God made two great lights. Is that two more on top of the first one? But then they're all in heaven to give light on the earth. So then, if they're all in heaven, then by that logic, does heaven experience days, nights, years? Like, I shouldn't say experience, but have days, nights, years like we do. Because they might experience time differently. Because think about it, like right now on this earth, we all experience time differently. Even though we objectively have the same sun. Our experience of that sun is different depending on where you're located, depending on what calendar you follow, like the Gregorian calendar. I mean, the Chinese have their calendar, the Ethiopians have their calendar, like what time zone, what elevation, blah, blah, right? So, I mean, even when they say dog years, like, but even think about that. It's like, how many, they have how many years in one day? So then who's the day for? Okay. Besides the point. Okay, so 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. 19, so the evening and the morning were the fourth day. 20, then God said, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens. Let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament? Because right now, okay, so I'm thinking, right, we have this, right, and my finger is moving across. But it's across what? Is it across the screen? Is it across the air? Is it across the atoms? Across what? The sky? Because what I'm seeing is how Earth is defined. You have like literal Earth, like the dirt, like the tangible ground. So then, is the firmament there? Not there. Like, is like, I'm not saying we're in heaven, right? Because we're on Earth. But is heaven a dimension that the light and the darkness permeates, that we interact with, but cannot experience what heaven is filled with because it's another dimension? Another dimension that we can't engage with. Am I even making sense? Does this make sense? Okay, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. Somebody will answer this. Somebody will make it make sense. Ask Neil deGrasse Tyson to make this make sense. This description from a physics perspective. Put this into the physical. Okay. So God created sea creatures and everything and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. maybe in evolution, that's what these are the dinosaurs. Doesn't they say like the oldest dinosaurs are like the birds? And then you got the stuff in the water too, right? An alligator kind of looks like a dinosaur, so maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know. And then think about it. Okay, it's because God said we were special, but in theory, these animals were here before us, according to this, even before any mention of angels. So when you think of the indigenous peoples, whether, gosh, man, language. Okay, so when you think of the indigenous peoples, and when I say this, I'm talking about the indigenous peoples around the world. So when I think of this, I think of the original inhabitants of Turtle Island, Africans. There's some things where it's just like, just rein it in. Okay. But if you're following my trajectory, like the people who value creation and nature, like these things were here first, right? And if you think of things as holding on to energy, and energy as memories or consciousness or subconsciousness, like there are trees that have been here for centuries. Think of how many generations of people these trees have experienced. Like if they could talk, like I wonder what the cabinets would say about the people that cut them down from those years of living that they, well, back when they were out in the wilds, you know? Like, do they just detest the new purpose they've been given? Are they dead? Or are they still living? These are, like, this is the nonsense that I think about sometimes, right? If you think about things as living things, because we know a tree out there, is living, right? And we've seen a tree die, right? But why do you have like tables and cabinets and wardrobes that are antiques that stand the test of time? Meanwhile, you cut down a tree and you see the twigs shrivel up and they're gone. You know, they can't be preserved. Or if you think about those turtles that live over 100 years, like just imagine the things that they've seen, that they know. I mean, to me, to a certain extent, like I know I may come across as somebody who's a know-it-all or something like that, but if you think about it, there are some things that we may take for granted that might know a lot, but because we can't interpret or tap into their intelligence, we're missing out on so much information. And then who's to say intelligence, because memory might be able to be captured in a lifespan, or experience might be able to be captured in that lifespan. But then think of like the knowledge or value that you could gain from like something with a short lifespan, like a fly. I mean, we think about the experiments that people have run on things like mice, and like dissecting their brains and all this stuff that came came out of that, whether or not that was ethical. But I don't know. That's just the thing that I thought about. That's just the things that I think about. And God saw that it was good. That it was good. Was. That tense. What if... Hear me out. Okay, I'm just throwing things out there. We haven't read the whole book yet. We haven't even finished the first chapter. But what if it's a reflection? Like, I'm jotting down my life, you know? I'm writing some feelings and stuff that I'm experiencing in real time. I may reflect back. The thing is, when I think of my own life, as a person who would say that they're a pretty introspective person, when I think about how many times I've reflected on like the same incident or the same memory, and you think about how memories get distorted and changed over time, and then your analysis of that moment, even if the memory isn't changed or isn't changed in a significant way, how your opinions of the same situation can change. What if that's what this book was intended as? Like, even if God was giving revelation to the authors, what if it's like, oh, this is this iteration or thought process that I'm just mind dumping on you in this moment? And it's not to say that the last installment is more accurate than the first installment. That's just my interpretation at that time after reevaluation. Because when in religion, you tend to see a lot of people look at these as um, static texts, that they're inherently perfect. But the thing is, though, from what I've heard and the stories that I've heard, the characters or even God, right, does have periods where they're reflecting and saying like, oh, I will not do this again, like another like great massive flood. So then why would we just assume like, okay, this is it? And then we tend to think of God as like all the omnis, right? Omnipresent, omnipotent, um, omniscient, all like, so all knowing, all loving, all whatever. But what if God, in theory, operates in constraints, right? If you think about God as a creator, right? As somebody who identifies as an artist, don't art is subjective, right? So you don't know whether it's any good or bad, but you know how people interact with your work, right? So if you think about humans as a creation, um, I would assume I would equate it almost to um, like parenting. Like, even if God is like actively interacting with us, right? Even though we cannot, well, some of us might not be able to hear him or like feel the physical interaction or influence, who's to say that the creation can't get away from you? And then you have to operate and adjust reactively instead of proactively, even if you're God, you know? Like, even thinking of like, even if you're thinking proactively, like say in a game of chess where you have to think multiple steps ahead, when it's time to make your move, you're still reacting to the other person's move. And you have to be proactive and forecast and continue to adjust ahead. Right? So um So yeah. So that's God. um, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. You know, sometimes when you're like on a train of thought, but because as you're speaking, you can't access the beginning to recall the point. Maybe after review, I can figure out what that is. But I felt like I was going somewhere, and then I just lost it. Okay. Um. Oh yeah. It was the whole tense thing. Yeah, mm, and constraints and limitations of God, and God as a creator, and us being creators, and how our creations our creations are never perfect. In theory, if we're made in the image of God, why do we assume that God is perfect? Like, I mean, when you see Elon Musk, and this man is like, when you think of kids and like consciousness, right? You think of consciousness as, when you think of creating a child, you think of it as the consciousness coming from God, like as a vessel, right? But when you see like Elon Musk and he's like literally creating these robots, or him and his team, right? But like they're striving to create a consciousness, right? So then if you think of that as a creation, and all the warnings we see from the advancements of technology, um, even thinking of God as a concept, right? If we see all the damage that and destruction that humans have caused, you'd think that people could extrapolate that and see that as a reason not to play God. But I don't know. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." Okay. So when he says, "Let birds multiply on the earth," okay, I'm thinking literally like, okay, like a bird lays an egg. Okay, so technically they have to be grounded to do that. But so in theory, then they are multiplying on the earth, and then they can go back to the firmament or whatever, and across the firmament. Um, or is it that Earth is encompasses that dimension? And when he says like, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures. So creatures. I mean, I guess because the waters aren't constrained to just fish. Um, but again, like, to me, that's where I'm thinking the whole dimensions thing again, right? But I don't know. You guys need to really watch this show, Fringe. It was so good. It was so good. You know, if I ever get to come back, I don't want to be an angel because I don't want to meddle, and as if I'm gonna be given the power to be something like an angel. We've seen. Let me not go. But you know, an observer would be cool. Oh my god, I just gotta sit there. You know, but it would be so hard to just sit there and watch. Like, how dejected do you gotta be to just sit there and watch? But anyways, be fruitful and multiply. So then, I'm getting caught up in things again. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because I think he said seed first. He said seed tree, but the seed will bear fruit in kind. The thing is, before seed bears fruit, it's a flower. Well, not a flower. It's a plant. which can then flower. And then the sex has to happen. And then you get the fruit. And then you get the fruit. And then the fruit gets the seeds. So then we knew that the sex was gonna happen because the way biology that we see today, hey, I mean, unless he's talking about I forget the word. Well, because I guess in theory, cuttings are a form of asexual reproduction, right? If you think about it, I know they like to blame everything on Eve, but think about it. Adam had a lot more reason if sex was the original sin. Think about it. How did God make Eve? Took Adam's rib out. Okay, asexual reproduction. Right? Not to mention, if you think about like what bone is made out of, right? Adam in theory was made of like organic material. Not to say that a bone is not organic material. But I'm just thinking about the difference between like dirt, clay, mud, whatever, and bone and ivory, you know? And then when you think of the original people, right? In theory, this is gonna, some of the things I'm gonna say are gonna sound so wild. So wild. But in theory, by that logic, I mean, sure, there are plenty of different types of dirt, right? But if we think of traditional dirt, we think of it as brown, right? So in theory, wouldn't Adam be brown and Eve white? In theory. Because I know we like to think of everything in terms of Moses, where it's like, oh, two of each kind, right? But in terms of Moses, in order for that to work, I mean, if you believe in that, you need a male and a female, depending on the species, to reproduce. And usually when you look at male and female animals, they're similar, but they're not the same. So I'm just saying, in theory, but hey, because sometimes there's some things I think, but there's levels to crazy. I'll only let you see so much crazy, as if this isn't bad enough. 23. So the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Cool. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, each according to its kind." And it was so. You see, that touches on what I was saying. Like, just because something is your kind doesn't mean that it needs to be the same. So it's weird when we think of like people and racism and whatnot, when in theory, Adam and Eve, that could have been an interracial couple for all we know. Unless anatomy, well, I mean, if you believe in the theory of evolution, anatomy has changed. But 25. And God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind. What's the beast of the earth? Sorry. And everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Why the separate distinction for cattle? And then what is the beast? 26. Then God said, let us, capitalized, us, that part. So when I think of that, I think of us in the sense of the royal we, where it's, because I know the whole pronoun thing, like, oh, scandalous, but if you think about it, like, the monarchs, or at least the English monarchs, weren't they kind of like the first to do that? Like, in terms of the royal we, that is a they, them, the monarch. Unless they're looking at it, I think they're looking at it as I as a representative of the monarchy, like I am making the decision on the behalf, but of us. So then is God including themselves in us? I went on a weird tangent in my mind there. Because what is God's connection to us as his creation? His. What if he is not even a he? Like, think about it. What if because I've heard theories about Lilith, right? Lilith as a person. But say, what if God was like Pygmalion? You know, like they created another to interact with. They created it from the mud. How would you know to do that? Like, what if we share the same makeup as God? Okay, let's put a pin in that and like finish the rest of the verse. But then God said, let us make man in our image. Our, again, capitalized. Again, I'm assuming, okay, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle. Okay, so fish, poultry, cattle. Over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Okay, so what does dominion mean? Because some people might think like dominion as in rule or power. But even if it's rule or power, in theory, doesn't that mean responsibility and accountability? But hey. In our image, in our likeness. So is that like surface and personality? Like, what if God knew that they could not at this stage capture the essence of who they are. Like, again, Elon Musk is an example, right? When you're looking at like the iterations of his robots, right? Obviously, there were prototypes, right? And even though this might be the first one launched, or I don't know if it's the first one launched, but if you think about it, these robots seem pretty humanoid. So like made in our image, in our likeness, like to behave like us, but not as us, because we're not there yet. Right? So, what if God is just creating a version and we're supposed to experience an evolution? Because in theory, like the more you create, in theory, the better you get over time. I mean, it's not linear or even exponential, I guess, but in theory, if you what's that word? You know when when you're in math and then you have the curve and then you do this and then it's y equals mx plus b. It's like that line. I don't know. See, when you've been out of school long enough and some things it's like you forget to remember, I guess. 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Okay. Okay. Let me finish the verse. Okay, from the beginning. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Okay. I want to deconstruct this. Okay, so from first glance, okay, they're saying that God is male. Right? Or that's how I'm reading it. But he said, in his own image, in the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. I don't know if it's the version I'm reading and the punctuation is off. In the image of God, and like, because I don't know if I'm reading it with the pauses I want to make, not what's actually here. He created him. Male and female. He created them. I need somebody to break this down in terms of language, in terms of what I'm reading. Okay. He created him. So is he saying God is he and the him he created is Adam? Is he saying God is he and he created himself? Or is he saying, so God created man in his? Because I'm seeing he is capitalized in the way God is capitalized. But him is not capitalized. And male and female are not capitalized. And so he. Okay, so then the way this is written, we have to assume, and we don't have to, but I'm making the assumption that God is saying that he is male. Okay. Because here's a secondary way I'm thinking of reading this. Because on the one hand, I'm thinking all the capitalizations are belonging to him, right? But then God also speaks in terms of us. So then if he's just speaking in terms of us and our, that means he has to capture the female too, right? So if he's saying he created man in his own image, because notice, like he said, man, and man is gendered language. So creating man as in his own godly entity, because he is created in the image of God, because he created him. I'm trying to think how he relates to him. Like in the sense, like he is God in name, but not in person. Like again, like he's not there yet. Right? And then we have male and female. He created them. Because here's the thing, right? Because, think. So that when I was younger, there's this book I read, and it's called My Sister's Keeper, and essentially, these parents, they gave birth to a daughter who was chronically ill, and so she constantly needed donors, right? But who's a better match? A direct family member. So they had another child so that they could find a better match. And so that person was there being used as parts for their sister. And the big theme of the books was like ethics, compassion, humanity, things like this, right? So when they're saying he created them, could that mean like he as in man, he as in the male, created them? Because them is lowercase, as in male and female. Because Eve was made from Adam's rib, right? So whether he was conscious or not, he was still a collaborator in the process of in developing Eve, right? So he would have participated in her creation. Especially when you consider like, and here's the thing, right? Because I'm not seeing it in the text. I'm not seeing it in the text yet. Like the whole rib thing. I'm not seeing like Adam feeling lonely and then God being inspired to create Eve. I'm not seeing that. But in theory, you could say that Adam contributed to them as a unit, as the concept of male and, well, I mean, in theory, God would have already established a male and female, because he's talking about cattle and all the animals, and the animals have their kind. But kind doesn't imply copy per se, right? So, like, in order for them to be fruitful and multiply, in theory, you would need to have the male and female dynamic already pre-established. The thing is, with the animals, they just appeared, right? Why was it essential that he used Adam to create Eve? And then if you think of language, at least English, Eve is before, right? And in this text, evening becomes morning. But okay, here's a weird thing I thought of. So evening, I know it's evening, but evening, to make something even, so pair becomes morning. But not morning as in like sunrise. But what if it means mourning as in sadness or suffering? Like, especially when you're thinking of like the heavens and the earth. So, what if this is the predecessor to suffering, our experience on earth? I don't know. I don't know. That was just like a different tangent that okay. Um yeah. I mean, the main point could just be that God is a man, or God is a godly man who created these earthly men and women. Um, and then if God is a man, why does God not have a partner? Or are we missing that? Like in Greek mythology, you'll see that a lot of the gods like pair off. But why is this god asexual? Okay, but maybe that's besides the point. Because if God is asexual or agender, why does he? Because he said he created man, not people, in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So it sounds like he created man in the image of him. So then who are women based off of? And if females exist in the animal kingdom already, like what was the blueprint God used? Because if he exists as a he and he's creating partners, where is God's partner? I feel like that's a fair question to ask. I don't know, maybe he's bored and lonely and that's why he created this nonsense. But sorry, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. Okay, then God blessed them. And God said to them, God blessed them. Them. Male and female. Part of me is asking myself, am I reading the right Bible? Okay. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Okay. So, him saying, "Be fruitful," the way we understand fruit creation, there's asexual and sexual reproduction. To a certain extent, it's implied that he's telling them to go have sex. So then, why is sex the sin? Or why do people say sex is the sin? Unless you're supposed to rip out a rib and do what? Or like play in the mud? Like, would it animate from then? Like, because he's saying be fruitful and multiply. Like, God doesn't say marriage, but he blessed them. So I'm assuming he blessed their, did he bless their creation or did he bless their union? Right? And even if he blessed their union, he didn't necessarily say, "Oh, marry." He said, "Oh, go have sex and have kids. Fill the earth and subdue it." Subdue. Okay. Again, Google is free. I can pull up the dictionary, but I'm trying to think of my internal definition. Like, because I think when I think of subdue, I think of like restrain or calm or, and they're saying have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air. Air. Okay, so now he's distinguished that there's earth and there's air. So they're not in the heavens. They're moving across the firmament, right? So that means like is air outside of the heavens or air is an aspect of the dimension we experience of the heavens? I don't know. Okay. And over every living thing that moves on the earth. That moves on the earth. Okay. 29. And God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seeds, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food." Okay. So we're supposed to be. At verse 29, it sounds like we're supposed to be vegetarians. Or vegan, sorry. Um, like. And when they say like fruit, like I'm assuming he means it in the word, in the sense of the word fruitful. Because I'm not assuming he means to be a frugivore, but I don't know. And I'm not saying that as a joke. I mean, people base their entire diets on these books. So, um, 30. Also, to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food, and it was so. So you mean to tell me that okay, it's from the sounds of it, you're not supposed to be carnivorous. From the sounds of it. Because he's saying even the animals are supposed to eat herbs. And it sounds like we eat fruit and they eat greenery. Now if the vegetable happens to be, no, it says herb. Okay. Then God saw 31. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. I don't feel like I read the right Bible. Okay? I don't. I do not. So let's go. And if I didn't, I appreciate you for sticking around and me wasting an hour and a half of our time. But let's see. Why didn't I think to go to Bible.com? That would have made a whole lot more sense. See, that's the thing that's the nonsense, right? How many different versions of the Bible are there? And you see how, like, every little word makes a difference and how somebody could interpret it. I'm just skimming this version from YouVersion, Bible.com, New King James Version. It seems very similar, but not the same. So, yeah, but I'm not seeing the rib thing. Let me Google this. When does God make Eve? Okay, when did God make Eve? Okay, so it's according to Google AI, saying the Bible offers two accounts of the creation of Adam and Eve, and the day Eve was created is debated. Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 to chapter 2 verse 4. The priestly history from the 5th or 6th century BCE states that God created all living things, including Adam and Eve, on the sixth day of creation. Genesis 2 5 to 7. Genesis 2:15 to 4:1 and 4:25. The Yahwist narrative from the 10th century BCE states that God created Adam first and then created Eve after putting Adam to sleep and taking a rib from him. Some believe that Eve was created on the sixth day as stated in Genesis 1:27. Others believe that Eve was created after the sixth day as detailed in Genesis 2. Eve's Hebrew name was Chava, which means to live, to give life, or to breathe. And Adam named her Eve because she would become the mother of all living things. But how did he know that? That's the thing. They're saying that periods are the curse of Eve. So are you telling me, because in the Bible it says that Cain and Abel were the two children, the first ones, right? And that was after Eve ate the apple. and after they were kicked out of Eden. So if that is the case, how did this guy know she was going to have kids? How? Yeah, God said be fruitful. Yeah, but if you think about it, a flower, like the flower, oh my god, it's been a long time since I learned about the anatomy of a flower. Whatever, but here's the flower. And then here's the little thingies. And then there's that thing up there. And then the bug goes and then and then it goes down and then it pollinates. No, I think, let me not use terms out of context, but then it goes down the thing in there and then it changes to a fruit. So how do you get human sex from that? Because a bug and a plant, they're two different species in order to create fruit. So and that's the thing. If you think about it, to an extent, it's kind of, yeah, to an extent, it's kind of like asexual reproduction. I mean, you have the interaction with another species, but would you call that? You wouldn't call that sex because a bee reproduces with a bee. And sometimes flowers produce flowers? No. Flowers would produce seeds if they're not pollinated, right? But that's the thing. So if you look at a tree, it's almost like a tree is its own ecosystem. A tree or a plant, it's like its own ecosystem. Or maybe it's not an ecosystem, maybe it's its own, I guess it's, yeah, it's its own life cycle, I guess, like stage in life, but it's, I guess each stage to us is more transformative, I guess, as opposed to humans where you go from a child to a preteen to a teenager to a young adult to etc etc, and like each phase you see something different. Yeah, but a flower is one structure. It's one structure acting on itself, interacting with itself. So I'm trying to think of a human equivalent. Yeah, because a flower a flower as a whole is unisex, but it has male and female parts. So in theory, it's like a hermaphrodite, but humans are not. So that's where the whole being fruitful thing happened. It confuses me because Adam named her Eve because she would become the mother of all living things. So then what is Adam supposed to mean? Cuz if I'm thinking about it in terms of Hebrew, if it's saying that she just encompasses all life, to live, to give life, then what's his role? Like, was the process supposed to be asexual? Because it's saying be fruitful and multiply. Because, I mean, I guess if you think of humans, like when you find your partner, you're supposed to be one unit. And then there you go, bam, you have the male and female parts, and then blase, blase. To live, to give life, or to breathe. Well, that's the thing. Even in the nature of her name, she comes before the rest. Like, she comes from him, but she continues. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking myself, as for all you people out there, you read, if you've read the Bible, you endured this hour and a half. I want you to tell me, did I just waste our time? That might not be the right question to ask. But did I read the right version, or the gist of what Genesis 1 is? And again, comment your opinion, comment your analysis, comment your thoughts, comment. And this is just a headscarf. I don't want people to interpret it as a religious covering. Yeah. Not that I'm saying that not that I'm saying that there's anything wrong with religious coverings, or with modesty, with Islam, with Christianity, because there's Christian veiling too. You know, I just wanted to put that as a disclaimer. Okay, thank you for hanging in there. Oh my gosh, that was long. Okay, bye.